Hi everyone, delighted on this episode of Words, Images, and Worlds to be having a second chat. I believe it'll be an interactive demonstration oriented chat with author, artist, creator Nick Bruel. Nick, thank you for joining again.
Well, thank you for your, strong endurance to have me uh, visit your podcast again. I'm happy to be here. I'm actually quite flattered. And sorry about the darkness. A lot of overhead lighting in the room I'm in, and I'm actually in front of a window, but it's pretty overcast today, so it's just not working in my favor.
I understand. I'm in front of a window as well, and sometimes a cloud will pass by and it looks like there's like a shadow that moves, but that works well. It creates a certain sense of mood. I think we're good. I think we're
Yes,
good.
yeah, I opt to be the sort of, the figure in black in the children's book industry.
There it is. There it is. Well, I wanted to lead off with a question because,
Sure.
I try to keep up with what's being published. That's part of what I do. And I notice there's a paperback of Bad Kitty on the way. There's another hardcover on the way in the next year. So, curious about what's new and happening in this series.
Sure. Well, actually, I'd love to know what the paperback is because I don't know what that is.
I will find it while
Okay,
you're
yeah,
answering that
sure.
question.
So the next two Bad Kitty books that come out, I only know the pub date for one of them is Bad Kitty Party Animal comes out on January 14th. And
hmm
interesting, it's going to be the 18th Bad Kitty chapter book. It's going to be the longest at 192 pages. And this time it will be about it's Puppy's birthday. It's his first birthday, and Kitty doesn't really know how to handle it. So really, it's a story about sibling rivalry, and it took me 192 pages to tell the story properly.
Nice.
Um, Around, I'm not sure when afterwards, so will be a picture book. Bad Kitty Goes to the Beach.
That's the hardcover that's on the way. Yes.
Oh, okay. That one's hardcover, and that one is it's a picture book. It's 9 by 9. It's sort of an offshoot of something that started 6 or 7 years ago when they asked if I would start doing. It was a concept I had to make sort of level one, level two readers for kids, only to discover that my publisher doesn't participate in leveled readers. There's a whole process to that I wasn't familiar with. And even though these level one and two readers from various publishers, it seems pretty arbitrary. They have to go through this additional vetting process to get the designation of level one or two. And my publishers just never participated in that. So I
Mhm.
started creating these simple picture books, starting with Bad Kitty does not like dogs, Bad Kitty does not like snow, Bad Kitty does not like video games and such. And at some point they thought, you know what, these are kind of fun. Let's make them just small hardcovers, blow them up a little bit from 8 by 8s, which is rack size, to 9 by 9s. And they've taken on a life of their own, and they're fun to make. This one, unfortunately, will be the last for a while because they're fun to make, but they do take up time, and I have to start looking at other. I want to explore other projects and avenues.
Nice, nice. What's the secret to being prolific and kind of keeping the process churning that way?
You know, I think maybe someone asked Stephen King this question once, and
hmm
he had a
hmm
pretty simple answer that I liked, and I think I employ it to some degree, is that he starts a new novel before he finishes the last one. It's hard for me to actually think of work on two books simultaneously, so my brain doesn't work that way. But I am always really contemplating what the next Bad Kitty project will be.
hmm
Certainly while I'm in the midst of the one that I'm in. And it means that for the most part, I'm ready to jump into the next book as soon as I hand in everything. Um, I typically know what the topic will be. I typically know what direction I want to take, even if I don't know the full story. Um, and I think that's probably the only answer I can give you that makes any sense, because anything else would be cynical, meaning I have to keep busy
Yeah,
in order to pay the bills. And this is my career, and this is my full-time job. And it's what gets me up and gets me to work each and every single day.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. Well, curious about that kind of process of inspiration, and this might be a good time to talk about the actual physical process of putting these books together. So, what is that like?
That's a great question. I love to talk about process questions, and I'm going by a process that I kind of made up entirely myself. And I think I have the liberty to do that because I write and illustrate my books.
Hmm.
So it pretty much step one, as I like to explain it to kids, is sitting back and daydreaming. It's one of those things kids are kind of told not to do, to avoid, because you're supposed to pay attention in class, but it's such an important part of what I do in order to create. I sit back and I daydream and I keep paper on hand, and I'm not organized enough to keep like a bound journal like most normal people. I'm just literally writing down every goofy idea I have. And it doesn't matter if they're in order for the book. It's just something that I think could happen, that could be kind of funny. And I just want to drop them before I lose them. And at some point or another, when I feel like things are starting to really click and I have a good solid beginning and I have a good solid ending and at least one good event in the middle, that's when I start to actually type out the outline to the story. And because my outlines will include pretty much almost all of the dialogue in the books itself, it's almost like the written manuscript. So they can be like 16, 17 pages, my outlines. Um, and that's what I first send to my editor so that she can see what I'm talking about. There's not a single illustration yet, because that's the point where I take just a sheet of paper, because fortunately these 8.5 by 11 pages, when they're folded in half, are about the size of my book. And I write and I sketch every spread with a ballpoint pen really fast, really loose. And that's that's to map out the book, but also to figure out what the page count is going to be at the end. Because I don't know if other subjects you've interviewed to discuss this, at least in publishing with my books, they all have to fall into all of the final page number has to be divisible by 16,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that's the signature size. So if I wind up with a book that's like 10 pages short or 10 pages long of the 16-page signature, I got to go back and I got to adapt all of that.
Hmm.
Um, I think like 4 or 5 times I've gotten lucky and it just fell right into the right page number. After that, I get the final paper that I'm going to be illustrating on, and that's where I pencil everything. And I pencil every single page. I don't ink anything, because that's when I take my pages and I scan the penciled pages on this like ancient printer connected to my even more ancient like Mac Pro from like 1995 or something, because that's the computer that still has all of the old versions of Adobe InDesign and Photoshop and Illustrator. It's all I need, because all I need to do is scan the pages and adjust the levels and create a PDF file that I can send to my editor.
Hmm.
So I haven't updated Photoshop in at least 25 years.
Nice, nice. You know
Yeah.
what works.
Yeah, because I don't work with the computer that much. I don't need to. And InDesign, I don't have to update these things, because it is all I'm really trying to do is drop them in. I'm not creating effects or anything. Once my editor looks over all the illustrations and has the manuscript where the words are going to be on every page, that's when I can make some changes to the illustrations if necessary. But more often it's the wording. More often than not, she wants me to change the wording on something. And I should add, more often than not, Emily Feinberg, my editor, is absolutely right. I've come to trust her immensely. And that's it. That's a process that's close to 6 months.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I usually ask about where people can go to learn more, but I believe you're going to show us something first. Is that right?
Yeah, this is I figured this is because this is our second interview. I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I thought maybe, and because you have this perfect name for your podcast of words, images, and worlds, I thought I would show to your viewers a very simple graphic storytelling exercise that I show to kids.
Hmm.
So for most of your adult viewers, this is all going to come as pretty come off as fairly didactic stuff. But for kids, it can be sometimes it can be pretty new. And what I'm do it's based on a exercise that I created in a book I made called Bad Kitty Makes Comics. It's
Hmm.
a chapter
Hmm.
from the book because in my journeys visiting schools, I have come to learn that for a lot of kids who love comics, who love to read comics, and are really curious about making comics, the biggest obstacle for them is that they don't feel like they know how to draw. And it's a setback that prevents them from trying.
Hmm.
So this is an exercise on how you can make comics if you don't know how to draw, because really comics are just another form of storytelling.
Absolutely.
Demonstrate this, I'm going to flip over to my handy dandy, fancy schmancy, best investment I've made in the last 5 years document camera.
Love it. Love it.
I will show you how you can make comics if you don't know how to draw. Now, what's great about the name of this podcast is that it is words, images, and worlds. And what I thought I'd do is begin by creating the world. This is the world in comics. Everything that's going to happen is going to take place inside of this box, although the professional vernacular is panel. Everything's going to happen in here. Now I'm going to create a character. And all I really need to do is make a dot. If you can hold a pen or a pencil, you can make a dot. And we can pretend that this dot is, well, just a dot. There's certainly stories where the character is a dot. Um, we can also pretend that this is somebody who's standing very, very far away. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to say this is an ant, just a tiny ant. Now, if I was to take this environment and this character, and I was to describe what's happening with just words alone, it would read, once upon a time, there was an ant. The end.
Hmm.
Not exactly compelling literature. So I'm going to do something that's really important in stories. I'm going to have give this ant, this character, something to say. And I'm just going to have it say, hello. And now we have a story that would read with just words. Once upon a time, there was an ant who said hello. The end. We can do more. So to do more, I'm going to go to a new page and I'm going to create a panel, but I'm going to do it on the top left because I know that I'm going to add more panels to this story. And there's my ant. Now, to make things more interesting, I'm going to have this ant say something different than before. This time I'm going to have this ant say, I'm lonely.
Hmm.
And this is pretty critical because what I've done is I've really created the character. I had a character that was just an ant, but now I'm defining it because we know something about this ant because he's telling us that he's lonely. We have a story that begins once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. We're going to add to our story by adding another panel. And here I'm going to draw my first ant. And now I'm going to create a second ant because this gives me the opportunity to have these two ants develop a relationship. And not only that, but a dialogue. So I'm going to have the second ant say, do you want to play. So now I have a story that begins, once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. A second ant came along and asked, do you want to play? I'm going to add another panel because I'm also going to add the third and possibly most important component to storytelling. Because I'm going to have that first ant now say no. Here I have a story that begins, once upon a time, there was an ant who said, I'm lonely. A second ant came along and said, do you want to play? And the first ant said, no. What I've created here is a conflict, a problem that needs to be resolved. And this is where I tell kids that they come in because now it is their task to add as many panels as they want in order to find the solution to this problem, to this conflict, as to why this first ant said no and what can happen between these two. And we can do this simply by answering some of the questions that we can pose ourselves, like, why is this first ant lonely? Where did the second ant come from? Why did this first ant say no when he originally said, I'm lonely? And we can do a lot with these panels. We can have the two ants to simply talk to each other, but I could also add more ants.
Mm-hmm.
I can also add another ant who's very big. And I can also even go so far as to add a bird just to make things interesting. However we want to tell our story. And if each kid took this scenario that I created and added as many panels as they wanted until they got to the solution they are comfortable with, every kid is going to come up with a completely different answer and a completely different story. That is my exercise on storytelling using words and pictures, even if you don't feel comfortable drawing the pictures part.
I love it. I love it. I love a good story and I love the good story beats and what a great way to merge images and the narrative that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a good, I love doing it, and I don't do it often as you might think, with large groups because boy, kids come up with some wild solutions, wild ideas and stuff, especially the ones who, sometimes you do get kids who do kind of know how to draw, and then they start to really add in their own elements and their own personalities to the frames and the panels and make something wonderful every single time.
Cool. Very, very cool. You mentioned you do this with school visits, is that right?
Yeah, one of the great opportunities that people like me who make children's books have is that we get this opportunity to meet our readers and
Mhm.
to do so by visiting schools. Um, I actually don't do this one often because this one requires pencil and pen and paper. And sometimes I'm meeting with hundreds and hundreds of kids at a time in an auditorium. So this is more of a workshop exercise.
Mhm.
Um, but this is an opportunity that doesn't come to a lot of comics creators, certainly any of the creators who work in the sort of adult genres and such, that I get where I can meet with, if I did this every day, I'd meet with thousands of my readers every week. It's kind of a fun opportunity, and I learn a lot
Yeah,
from these kids. Some of my books would not exist if not for my having been in the environment where my readers are to see what their worlds are like.
love it. Love it. Love it. Well, if I'm a listener out there and I want to see more about Bad Kitty, if I want to see more about getting in touch with you for school visits, workshops, or if I just want to check out more information about who you are there places where I can go to do that?
Well, I think the best place to go is the website my publisher set up, which is called badkittybooks.com.
Hmm.
Bad Kitty Books, all one word.com. Not badkitty.com. You'll get an email from HR if you go to that one.
Be sure
Badkittybooks.com.
that books is there. Add
Yeah.
the books.
And if people want to contact me directly, whether it be for school visits or they have questions or what have you, Nick at nickbruel.com. And
Awesome.
always happy to get emails, especially from the kids. And I always do try to respond um, which might get me into trouble now, but I take it seriously. Kid's going to make the effort to write to me. I need to make the effort to write back somehow.
Love it, love it. Well, and I can tell you as a young person that used to hear from authors occasionally, when you get that letter back, via email or in the post, it's a big deal. It's very memorable.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the demo. That's a very cool idea and something that I hope lots of people will check out. I know that teachers listen to this from time to time, and so getting to share that is wonderful. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to include before we close our talk?
Well, I think the last time we talked, we might have covered there was a possibility that there would be a Bad Kitty streaming series.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
um, the possibility is a little bit stronger now, but it's still not definite. So if the opportunity arises for us to talk again, hopefully I'll have an actual answer for you. And hopefully it's a good answer. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, that would be awesome. A transmedia, multimedia talk. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we will plan on it. I'm sending all the good vibes for that.
thank you.
And always glad to talk to you about creating and thank you for the time and the creativity.
This is always fun, Jason. Thank you. You do a great job. I love your podcast. I love these videos. I love hearing about what other illustrators do to create their craft. So keep up the great work on your end, please.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the kind words. Glad to have you back anytime.
Thank you.